Welcome back to the Legacy Crusaders YouTube channel. This is Benji, and today we are checking out a local duel between Douglas and Akeem, both of which who have appeared on the channel multiple times. Douglas has multiple top 8 regional finishes with his Paleozoic decks, and Akeem has 2 YCS top cuts with Altergeist. He's also managed to win a first place regional in upstate New York using World Chalice, so he's actually pretty good at using many different decks. Doug's been mostly successful using Paleo. Let's see how they do. Doug is up first after winning the dice roll, setting 4 and passing. Akeem is going to draw for turn. He has what looks like Terraforming, Ash Blossom, Afterburners, quite a few cards, Effect Veiler, so I think that's 4 of the 5 cards. Doug's going to start off by activating Paleozoic Morella to get his traps in the graveyard so that he could potentially summon Totally Awesome next turn using them. So I'm thinking about, in the future, for dual content, I might post Game 1 and 2 of matches as one video, and Game 3 is a separate video in the event that it does go to Game 3. That way, you don't need to watch multiple videos in order to get the ending, but at the same time, it does not give away the winner if it goes to only Game 2. So in this case, we're going to do the first 2 games in this video, and we will do Game 3 separately if there is a Game 3. Now, Akeem is going to activate Foolish Burial Goods to put Metal Foes Fusion in the graveyard. I haven't seen a scenario where someone has actually put like Engage or something into the graveyard, but I'm sure it makes sense. Now that Hayate's out there, you would never really need to send a specific Sky Striker card to the graveyard. He's going to activate Terraforming. Doug has 1 card left in his hand. I'm pretty sure it's Gamma-Seal, the Sea Turtle Kaiju, which is a big deal from his regional deck that he did provide. He did not want to share that he had switched some cards in for the Gamma-Seals, or switched some cards out for the Gamma-Seals. Terraforming resolves adding Area 0 to his hand, which will let him dig through his deck by sending a card on his field to the graveyard. He'll get to look at the top 3 cards of his deck and add a Sky Striker card amongst them, or do nothing. So he'll activate Area 0. Another feature of Area 0 is it'll let you get your Sky Striker Ray out of your deck and onto the field, because it is a deck that only plays 1 main deck monster. You do need to have more access to it, so it is a pretty good card for the deck. Akeem has bricked pretty hard with nothing but hand traps and an Afterburner, so he's going to need to dig using Metal Foes Fusion to try and get a little bit farther. You can also use Area 0 to get slightly farther. He's actually currently set himself up in a position where he only has the 2 spells in the graveyard, so he doesn't get any of the bonus effects of his Sky Striker cards at the moment. He sees Called by the Grave, Infinite Impermanence, and Widow Anchor. Sending to the graveyard another copy of Widow Anchor. So I guess he was digging for Engage so that he can start getting free pluses by just drawing cards. Doug currently has a set Compulsory Evacuation Device, Solemn Judgment, and a copy of Heavy Storm Duster. Now, Heavy Storm Duster doesn't allow you to attack the turn you activate it, so it's preferable to activate it in your opponent's turn if possible, so that you can still attack afterwards, although for 1 card, does it make sense to activate it at all? Now, if he wants to get his 2 frogs on board in order to make his Totally Awesome, he will need to activate 2 trap cards. So, since he's not going to be able to Judgment, he could Judgment his own cards, but he can't respond with Morella to Judgment. He makes the decision to activate Heavy Storm Duster, targeting to destroy the Widow Anchor and chaining the Morella in the graveyard. He drew Ronin Totem for turn, uses it to make Totally Awesome, and attempts to attack but cannot, because Heavy Storm Duster says you cannot attack the turn you activate this card. So Doug looks slightly silly there, but not so bad. Sometimes you get through damage that way in regional events. You shouldn't try to if you know you're doing it, but make an effort not to. He detaches Morella to summon a frog from deck on Akeem's standby phase, and Akeem responds with Ash Blossom, and Doug elects not to negate the effect of the Ash Blossom, feeling keeping Toad around could be more important than ensuring the frog goes through. He also was unable to negate the effect of Ash Blossom using Solemn Judgment, which does not negate monster effects, only the summon of monsters or the activation of spells and trap cards, meaning they're being placed face up on the field. Doug is keeping his side deck and his extra deck in his deck box, which is really annoying. He's showing me his fancy side deck he did not want to share last time he gave us the deck list. Looks like Akeem is going to normal summon Effect Veiler. Now, I'm not sure what his plan is. I guess he's going to use Area 0 to try and send it to the graveyard. He's going to get bounced using the compulsory evacuation device, allowing Doug to summon Paleozoic Morella from the graveyard because he has no card he can respond with. Well, he has Twin Twister, but he elects not to use Twin Twister. So Morella is now on field along with Totally Awesome. Both players still have 8,000 life points. If you want to continue to see duels like this, don't forget to subscribe. The button is down below. You can also press notifications if you want to see the follow-up games, if there are follow-up games. So Akeem will set his afterburners using Area 0 to dig into his deck. He gets a copy of Ray. So he has Ray, Effect Veiler, not sure what else he has at the moment, Twin Twister, I believe. And it looks like another Ash Blossom. So he's drawing mostly hand traps. He can't really do anything with Ray at the moment. It could get Judgmented, preventing him from getting anywhere. He has no way currently to send his Area 0 to the graveyard to get another Ray, should that happen. Doug once again attempts to resolve Toad and gets Ash Blossomed by Akeem, although this time he uses his Gamma Seal, which is an Aqua, so he's sending it to the graveyard, not discarding it, not attributing it, sending it to the graveyard to negate the Ash Blossom in order to resolve his summon of Swap Frog, which he will use to send another Swap Frog to the graveyard so he can bring it back, bring back the Ronin Totem. Now, because the Ash discarded itself as cost, you actually can't take it with the Toad because it's not destroyed by the Toad. The card in the hand is not the same as the card in the graveyard, so he can't set it. Not that he really would want to set it, but at least it would be a body to play defense with. So he'll pick up the Ronin Totem. He'll use Swap Frog to pick itself back up, normal summon it again, sending to the graveyard. He's deciding if he wants to send another Ronin Totem or another Dupe Frog or Swap Frog. He is concerned that Akeem is playing what's it called? Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion, which he does play. I played him the other day in a UDS, and he beat me by using Ghost Bell on my Rekindling for my Infernoids when I had triple Decatron and Grave. So he sends Ronin Totem, so now he has 2 summonable Ronin Totems in the graveyard. Sometimes it's better to just get them out of the deck because they are essentially bricks and you'd rather not have them. Because he did successfully resolve the effect of Swap Frog, he is able to perform an additional normal summon of Dupe Frog. He now has 4 monsters. If he can use this sequence of monsters to make a Boral Sword Dragon and summon Totally Awesome, he should be able to win and end the game. Now, he makes an illegal play using the Paleozoic Morella to make the Boral Sword Dragon, but it was a very fixable play. We didn't catch it in the moment, but Morella could have just as easily been linked with the Totally Awesome into a Miss Starboy, allowing him to use the Miss Starboy as a 2+ effect monster rather than using the Morella as an effect monster, which it is not. So that was an illegal play. Now, Doug should be aware of the Effect Veiler because he bounced it to the hand using the compulsory evacuation device. So Akeem is forced to use it on the Boral Sword early to ensure that he does not get OTK'd this turn, because most Paleo decks finish games using just the Boral Sword Dragon and a Totally Awesome, allowing you to do 8,200 damage into a open board, which is essentially what is here. Solemn Judgment is there backing him up for defense, should anything go wrong. Doug is making a big deal about which of his frogs he summons, because apparently one of them is less pretty than the others. Looking for his remaining Toad. Silly Doug. Alright, so here we go. He's going to declare battle and inflict 5,200 damage to Akeem, taking a huge life point lead. But as we know in Yu-Gi-Oh, life points don't matter unless we're close to the 40-minute marker, and we still have 30 minutes to go. Doug attempts once again to summon a frog from the deck, getting infinite impermanence this time. So Akeem is drawing nothing but hand traps, although he did manage to get Ray into his hand off of his previous Area 0. Ray will allow him to get some monsters. Get somewhere. He has Twin Twister in hand, so he can always use that to get Ray out as well, should something go wrong with the other Ray. He sets Twin Twister and digs deeper into his deck, in this case coming up with a multi-roll. Now, multi-roll will allow him to prevent him from responding to any of his spell cards, including his Solemn Judgment. So Twin Twister is sent to the graveyard. He has multi-roll and Ray. He'll activate multi-roll, and Doug is considering activating either the Totally Awesome to negate it or the Solemn Judgment to negate it, because he is aware he has Ray, and Ray can get back the Afterburners or the Widow Anchor, which could potentially do a lot of damage. That will trigger the effect of Area 0, allowing him to summon a Sky Striker monster from the deck. Doug is investigating the graveyard, determining how many spell cards he has, determining how strong or weak he will become due to Shizuku or Kagari. Okay, so Doug is making a big deal of the Dragon Ball sleeves that Akeem has on his tokens and his extra deck, because he also plays these Dragon Ball sleeves, and his apparently are a little bit different from his. Alright, so the Sky Striker Ray on the board is used to link summon Hayate, and Doug is still distracted by sleeves and decides that he should use Solemn Judgment, paying half of his life points to negate the summon of Hayate. He then normal summons Ray and attempts to go into Hayate again, which we then have a brief argument over whether this is allowed, because it compares to other cards. I compared this to the summon of Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon, which says if you can only attempt to summon it from the hand once this way. Or you can only summon it from the hand once this way, and if you negate its summon, you can't attempt to summon it again, even though a negated summon means it technically was never summoned. All the Sky Striker monsters say they can only be special summoned once per turn. We conclude that you cannot summon Hayate a second time, or attempt to, even though you negated the summon the first time. By linking it to that ruling, additionally, we had another player go onto the Facebook Judges Lounge, which I will link below, where you can ask questions or search for questions that have been asked previously. I'll also be linking you to the Ruling Zone Discord group, where you can ask questions as well. Every once in a while, the Ruling Zone will baffle me and make me feel silly. There was a ruling that was asked in the Ruling Zone about Abyss Megalo of Mermails, saying you could not activate its effect to attack twice if it's under Fiendish Chain, not because its effect is negated, but because it cannot attack. Similarly, you're not allowed to activate Abyss Megalo should it be in defense position, even if you can change its battle position later in the turn. Kind of going along with the ruling that you can't use it should you activate Soul Charge or it be the first turn of a duel. So, some strange rulings. Sometimes you can't extrapolate them properly. So we are currently still arguing over this ruling. Our friend Lewis, who is also playing Paleo, is currently going onto the Judges Lounge. I can't get onto it at the moment because my phone is in use as a camera. Akeem is also attempting to look it up. Oh, I guess he was just checking for something else. So we've determined that you cannot attempt to summon the Hayate a second time, meaning that Akeem is going to have to use his Ray to go into something else. So he can go into Kagari and grab the Widow Anchor, allowing him to take control of the Boral Sword Dragon. Looking at the graveyard, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spell cards in the graveyard at the moment, meaning that Kagari would have 2,200 attack points, but he is going to add a spell back to his hand, bringing him back to 2,100. And he's doing a quick count, so he'll see that he's currently at 2,100. He'll take control of the Boral Sword Dragon, allowing Kagari to be able to crash with the Totally Awesome, which will then trigger the effect of Sky Striker Ace Ray in the graveyard, summoning it back to the field, putting out 4,500 damage, conveniently exactly enough to end the game. Well, not exactly, a little bit more than enough, but a win out of nowhere by Akeem, very impressive. We had a long discussion during side decking whether there was another card worth Solemn Judgmenting. We did not determine exactly what card it would have been, but definitely that Solemn Judgment was definitely too early. At the very least, he could have used it to negate the summon of a Kagari that would come up next, although he also could have... he couldn't respond to any of the spell cards, so all he can do is negate the summon of a monster, so it was whether he should negate a Kagari or whether he should negate the Hayate. So the Hayate would have sent to the graveyard the Engage, followed by going into the Kagari, being unable to add it back to the hand. He would have only been able to, I think, set one of his Sky Striker cards in the graveyard, so he would have taken 1,500 damage, then taken half his life points from Solemn Judgment, and then we would have proceeded. Anyways, if you haven't already, subscribe and click notifications to catch... Welcome back for Game 2, if I didn't cut this into 2 videos, because it wasn't intended to. We are starting up right now. It's 21 minutes and 11 seconds, and Doug lost the previous game, so he's probably going to choose to go first, although Doug has bricked really hard and has just passed back to Akeem. He's opened 3 Gammas. 3 Psy-Frame Gear Gammas, 1 copy of Lilith, Lady of Lament, and Dupe Frog. Akeem foolishly exposes that he has a heavy Storm Duster in his hand. He's already successfully resolved Terraforming and his Foolish Burial Goods to get his Metal Foes Fusion in the graveyard. If he has Engage in his hand, he essentially has everything he needs. So he's going to activate the effect of Metal Foes Fusion to draw a card, so he must not have it at the moment. On field, he currently has his copy of Sky Striker Area 0, so he can dig through his deck if he can set a card on the field, or even normal summon a hand trap if he needs to. So he activates Area 0, targeting the set card, getting into Ray and Hornet Bit. So he'll probably take the Ray, getting rid of his own Afterburners. Oh, he does have Engage. So at this point, Doug is in a position of, well, terrible position. There's not much he can do. He only plays 1 driver, so he can't resolve, like, a double Gamma. But then again, it is very strange to play more than 1 driver. The only person I've ever seen do that is myself, unless you're playing a Psy-Frame deck. So yeah, it looks like Doug is doomed. If you enjoy watching Doug be doomed, continue to watch this game. Subscribe to see more of Doug's pain. He'll be summoning Kagari, attempting to add back Engage, and he gets Gamut, allowing the effect of Ray to trigger so that he can go into Shizuku, or this is the second turn of the game, so he could also go into Hyate and send a card to the graveyard after attacking directly. Looks like he's just going to go into Shizuku. Is he going to set anything? I guess he'll set the Heavy Storm Duster, which he did expose to Doug, so Doug has no reason to set any cards, but at the moment he doesn't have any cards, so it doesn't really matter. In the end phase, he'll use Shizuku to search, potentially Widow Anchor, maybe a multi-roll, because most of his cards are in the graveyard. He could also get Eagle Booster. Eagle Booster I found to be one of the most annoying cards in the game. If you can't like end phase and destroy an Eagle Booster with a card such as Twin Twister or Heavy Storm Duster, you're probably not winning that game right there, so it is important to try and get to that point. So they're goofing around, because Doug has essentially given up. I believe he drew into Swap Frog, though, meaning he can actually do something. So he has Swap Frog and Dupe Frog. So he'll normal summon Swap Frog, attempt to activate its effect to send a frog to graveyard, and it gets Veilered. He specials it by discarding the Dupe Frog, attempting to send a frog to the graveyard, and as we can see, Akeem has another Veiler. So Doug is not having a very good time banging on the table and shaking my camera. Thanks, Doug. So he's going to scoop because obviously he wasn't going to win there. And that's going to wrap up Game 2 of Douglas's Paleos versus Akeem Sky Strikers. And the message is, do not side Psy-Frame Gamma, because it is the worst card ever. Yeah, if you have not already, subscribe, and we'll see you next time in our duel where we check out Trickstar versus Thunder Dragons. First appearance of Thunder Dragons on the channel, coming soon. Alright, see you next time.
3, right? Didn't work, man. You have double veil. Look at, oh my god, and purpose the same shit. You said it, the same shit. No, it's not. It's not.